Hey, what's up everybody? It's OC. I know I wasn't going to make any more of these coronavirus videos, but this one isn't really about the coronavirus per se. It's about other things pertaining to my channel and my Facebook accounts. And when I woke up and tried to share my videos on Facebook, they were no longer allowed. All my coronavirus videos now, I'm no longer allowed to share them on Facebook. I can share them to other people, of course, in emails and, so on. And you guys are able to share them, I think, if you're even able to see it right now. Some people are messaging me and telling me that they're unable to leave comments. And so it's telling me that I'm getting views because if thousands of people are trying to leave comments and I'm only showing 80 views or 40 views, but thousands of people are messaging me telling me they're unable to leave comments. Something's going on. But hopefully, after all of this is over, things will go back to normal with YouTube, if there even is a YouTube after all of this, because the way the stock markets look, there may not be a YouTube much longer. So, you got to think about that too. How are we supposed to share information? Luckily, I have everything on backups, that if anything happens to YouTube or Facebook and all that, I'll still have copies of all the content I've ever shared. So, and I'm sure that other preppers have the same thing. So, I hope everybody is prepared for whatever may happen or may not happen. Everybody's hoping it doesn't happen, but hoping isn't going to help you if it does. And it's already happening in other places. And don't think that America is so powerful it can't happen here, because it can. It's stupid to think that it can't. It's really, really stupid to think that it can't happen here. I don't believe how people can be so naive in a situation like this. Even though there's a good percentage that it's not going to outbreak here like it is in other places, but why would you take the chance not just have a few things on hand ready in case it did and you had to stay home for a month? What would you do tomorrow if the government came on television and said, okay everyone, you have 24 hours to get what things you need to get and be back at your homes, and everyone has to stay home for a month? What would you do? Would you be able to get prepared? How busy do you think the stores will be? How much violence do you think will start to ensue? It'll be like the Purge. Only people that are going to be out are criminals and cops rounding people up that are not obeying. It's like in China. You see people getting round up in other videos in the series where people are being round up in the cities in China because they're not obeying the regulations. And that's to be expected. It's somewhat of a martial law. That is what is declared there, but that's not what they're going to declare here. That's not what they're going to call it. Because all the gun-toting people are going to go ape shit. They're going to have a lot of fights on their hands if they come to people's houses trying to take them, drag them to quarantine places. That's not going to happen here. They're going to make people stay in their homes, is what they're going to do. And if people are seen out, then they have the authority to take them to jail, and they'll know that up front. So if you go out of your home after the authoritative time, the scheduled time, the curfew, then that's on you. And you're gonna be subject to being taken somewhere because you're now at jeopardy of infecting the public with yourself if you're infected, and they don't know if you're infected or not, and they don't want to spend the $3,000 to find out. That seems to be what's going on. They're stifling my Facebook right now because every video I try to share in the series now is rejected by Facebook. They'll no longer let me share anything to do with the coronavirus from myself. I can share other people's content, which is weird. It's like they've attacked my URL on YouTube. They've gotten my URL, stuck it in their system somehow to where it doesn't allow that URL to upload videos to YouTube, to be uploaded to Facebook, sorry. You know, even as a message. Just sharing it. I can't even share it. Let alone upload one. If I upload one with even containing coronavirus, I have to call it something else. And then it would still get taken down after they review it. So they're watching content very heavily, and they're stifling views so that the content won't get more views, you know, because everybody likes to watch videos that are popular. And if the video views, like some of my video views started going up really fast, you know, and then they got stopped. Makes it even worse. It just brings evidence to the table. But I appreciate you watching the videos. I'm just going to give you some tidbits here about the stock market, because what I said earlier this week on Monday's video, if you watch back at those videos, I said that the market would continue to go down, 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 down until it was damn near bottomed out. And now it's, I don't know, over 2,000 points in the negative right now. 2,000 points. I don't think people understand what that means in a conversion to money on the stock market. But it's in the billions, if not more. I'm sure I know it's in the billions, and I'm not sure if it's more. But I know it's in the billions right now that the stock market is down. And that was money that the Fed and the Chinese central bank were pumping into the market to keep it afloat. Now that money is disappearing. There hasn't been money getting put in for months now into the market. That was the money that the Fed and the Chinese government's banks put into the system to keep it up while this was going on over there. And now that money is deplenishing. So what happens when that money deplenishes? Are they going to keep putting more and more and more of their own money in to keep it afloat until all of this passes by? Everybody needs to get ready for a collapse of the money, because that's going to be a hell of a lot worse on the situation of the people than the virus at the same time. Because the chaos that's going to ensue of a market crash in the middle of a pandemic is going to be insane. So not being prepared is just stupid. It's no longer ignorant at this point, because you know. Knowing is knowledge. Knowing, you know, ignorance, ignorant to the fact of, well, now you have the facts. So if you still contain your sleeping habits on these subjects, you're going to end up really fucked over in the end. So get yourself ready. And if it doesn't happen, then great. You know what I mean? But not being prepared and having it happen is going to be a lot worse. And it doesn't take much to get ready for a month of having to stay at home. You know? And that's on the short end of this. That's just from the pandemic. That's the worst end of the best scenario situation on just the pandemic. Not even the dollar collapse. If the dollar collapses, it's going to be a hell of a lot worse and a hell of a lot longer before the shelves get refilled. So everybody hope that this passes over quickly. You know, our creator should, you know, even if everyone in America contracted the virus, only about 40 million people would die. Okay, statistically. So it's not like it's a world-ending event or anything, but it's a significant amount of people, and 40 million people have families, you know, so that's a lot of fucking heartbreak out there all before summer, you know. So, you know, pray for all of us. Thank you so much for watching the videos. Click like, subscribe, share this video with everyone you know. We can make a difference, but we must speak up.
Wiped out nearly $4 trillion in market value over the past 10 sessions. That is the budget of the United States of America, because people believe you don't want to be in a tight steel tube or aluminum tube with 350 people you don't know sneezing on the back of your head.
Right.
Okay. What's a rate cut going to do about making people afraid to get on a plane?
Well, that was my point earlier. I don't. Money can be as cheap as you want, but if people are scared to go out, it doesn't really matter. But I'll say, on the good point is this. I was traveling today. I was in Fort Lauderdale Airport, packed. My plane filled with people. Nobody on the plane that I saw had a mask on. When I landed in Newark, New Jersey, the line through security was packed. People didn't have masks. So right now, it seems like business as usual. The concern clearly is if something were to happen here and people stop spending money, 73% of our economy is driven by people wanting to spend money.
Right, but
people get scared.
I'll let you finish, but that could be pent up to a certain period of time where I don't necessarily think you're going to get the same bang. Like if you're going to take a vacation, you put this one off, you probably aren't going to take two in 6 months. But there's a case to be made that there's a technical recession, and a lot of these costs and a lot of these things that you're buying, you will eventually buy once you do come outdoors.
Dan, and tell me if I think what you might be saying is that the markets, what it's going to do now is this is just a catalyst to respond to what were fundamentals that didn't make sense before. Is that fair?
A little bit. I mean, but this is also on the heels of that mid-cycle adjustment that we had last year with 3 rate cuts. And so my point is that the economy was already fragile. We have this black swan event. Make no mistake about it. That is what this is right here. And I'm just saying that the likelihood of recession has gone up dramatically. We spent all summer when we had that the Treasury inversion talking about in 2019 that every recession in the post-war period was preceded by that inversion. Inversion, and here we are 6 months after that, and we're having it again almost.
So, just one quick point, because I agree with that, but then back to what's gone on over the last week and the extreme moves across stocks. You know, Boeing is a great example. This has been a battleground stock. This is certainly a stock that before this dynamic, we were very concerned about company-specific safety issues. You know it. I don't need to get into it. Boeing has sold off more on the coronavirus. It went from 340 down to 275 than it did when it had major existential and safety issues. And why is that? Boeing's business isn't going to change because of the coronavirus.
So Tim, let me follow.
And that's an opportunity.
Let me follow
the same with Delta Airlines.
Let me follow up with you on that point, then. So, okay, you mentioned Delta. I was going to ask you about United only because Guy was on a United flight. He said it was crowded. And we've known about the Asia stuff. By the way, they had fights in Hong Kong, and the planes were empty then, too. I know because I was on one. United is down 21% this week. So either you believe that United's business is going to fall off from here dramatically, or it's not. American Airlines, the same way. Are we willing to bet that things will slow down that much?
They canceled flight routes. You know, if you want to look at the positive side of that, these are airlines that are actually acting with discipline and on capacity rather than having planes sit around or fly with 3 people on them. I actually hear that airlines are running their businesses differently. It's an awful time for them. There's a lot of reasons. But if you can't tell me that Delta, which traded from 61 down to 45, which has the best balance sheet of the airlines, is going out of business. And the stock is trading like there's balance sheet stress and people that were never flying an airplane.
Before we get to Carterworth, I want to bring up one stock as well. It's a little bit controversial. If we could bring up the ticker for Tellurian, T-E-L-L, guys. Tellurian is a big company, LNG producer. Well, not yet. They're going to be. They've got one huge project that is underway, but they're not exporting yet. Stock fell 51% today. I was talking to some desks. They're saying, listen, basically the market is suggesting that these long-term China contracts may not happen. Point is, Steve Grasso, the market sold that stock off ostensibly on nothing, just because they believe that this project may not happen. Is that a rational market
No,
behavior?
it's not rational. To Tim's point, when you see Boeing sell off more on Corona than the MAX jet, it's because you can't quantify. So everyone just looks for the exit immediately. MAX jet, you could sort of quantify what is it going to do.
Yeah, we have 37 planes and it's blah, blah, blah.
Right, so there is some way to quantify. Or you could be wrong.
Well, even United doesn't know. They told us a couple days ago. We don't know what the earnings are.
So there's a way you could do it. But when you look at Corona, we have no clue how many thousands or millions of people are going to get it
or not
get it. So what people do is they rush for the exit.
That's what I'm asking.
So this is not rational.
Everybody's tired and grumpy.
No, Brian, real quick.
Is it
the rational thing? Was it rational? No, I'm happy as can be. It's Friday. I mean, the Rangers play tonight. Was it rational the weekend when Apple came out and made their comments? Stock went down $5 or $6 off an all-time high on Monday. By Tuesday, it was making another all-time high. Was that rational?
Let me ask you a more direct.
The short answer is no.
Let me ask you a more direct question. More direct question.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Did American Airlines deserve to fall 30% this week?
We don't know. How can you know? What do you say all the time? Price is
truth. I mean, and I know that people
Sully, you're
push
talking
back
about
with-
an industry where American Airlines have been bankrupt twice in the last 30 years. Yes, maybe it did. I'm just saying, like, you know, just because
Did the
all
entire
the others,
market act rationally to you this week?
I don't know. I don't think
triple
it acted
volumes,
particularly rational over the last 3
doing
months.
triple its volume.
Listen, dude, I'll just tell you this, okay? For the last couple months, we've been talking about why has the XLU gone straight up? Why has Tesla gone up 500%? Well, I could go on and on and on about the idiotic stuff that's gone on the other way. And so we have 1 week where the market goes down 14% in a straight line, and the cheerleaders just come out. And let me tell you what cheerleaders are. Cheerleaders are the people who root on the way up and they root all the way down. And that's not particularly useful, is what I'm saying.
It's the same thing on the short side too. There's been people who've been calling for the market to sell off since 666 in the S&P.
Right. Okay. So here's what I'm telling you. Turn the TV off. Get off of Twitter a little bit.
Not yet. Don't turn the TV off.
What I'm saying is,
turn the TV off later.
Well, what I'm saying is, it's like, you know, it's just like, is this what you're doing? You might have a broker or a hedge fund manager or something like that. The people that you're paying to do this.
By the way, nobody cares, but I did a Twitter poll. Did you sell stocks this week?
No, we don't care.
No, What's up, dude? 75% of my poll, it's 1,000 people, whatever it is, said no, they did not sell stocks. So somebody sold stocks. I guess it was all the algos. Jim Simons can buy a bigger yacht this week.
We know that early on in the outbreak of this virus, there are a lot of comparisons to SARS. Now people are changing their frame of reference, and they're looking at perhaps the financial crisis or other shock events. How would you think about it when it comes to supply chain disruptions? Is there a comparison to be made to any prior event?
The comparison to, first of all, thank you for having me, and I'd like to ask you next time when you invite me to speak, I'd like to speak on, have the introduction a little bit more upbeat than what I just heard.
Fair.
But, fair, okay. But when we talk about the supply chain in general, first of all, I think I was writing a month ago that it should be compared to 2008 because we don't only have supply disruption, factories are closing, transportation links broken, but we have a demand problem because people are not buying. And this is just starting. We used to have it in China. We have it now in all over Europe. We are starting to have it in the United States. It's going to get quite a bit worse before it's going to get better. And we can talk about which companies will be most in danger.
Well, so I mean, one of the things that a lot of people have been discussing is the complexity of modern supply chains, the sort of just-in-time manufacturing such that companies do not have a lot of spare inventory. There's been a lot of discussion about concentration risk, how much of the supply chain is in China specifically. We know the disruption is happening. How hard do all these things make it to sort of recover from an extreme disruption?
First of all, the complexity of the supply chain is not the problem. The just-in-time also is overly hyped in the sense that there's a lot of inventory. You saw Chinese factories have closed now for 6 weeks or so.
Right.
We still don't have any shortages in the marketplace. It will come, but there's a lot of inventory in the channels and a lot of ships on the sea that still have a lot of inventory on them. So sometimes towards the end of March, I expect to start seeing shortages. But let's talk about a phenomena that will focus the mind on which companies should be helped. And to understand this, we talk about the so-called bullwhip in supply chain. What happens is, assuming a retailer sees its forecasting system and what it sees on its point of sale system tells it that X% less demand is coming in. Now, it sees it into the future and it has too much inventory, so it will cut by 2X% its orders from the wholesalers. The wholesaler sees the same thing, it will cut by 4X% to the manufacturer. And so it goes on from supplier to supplier. The most vulnerable people are the small suppliers at the upstream of the supply chain.
Right.
And by the way, the Chinese government totally understands it. The Chinese government now asks all the state banks to loan money to the small supplier at the end of the supply chain. They even cut their taxes. So they're starting to do it. In the same way, companies should look at their suppliers, should look who is vulnerable, who should be helped. During the 2008, companies extended credit. Companies even invested in their critical supplier. Something else that go ahead.
No, you make a great point illustrating the knock-on effects of how a cutback in demand affects not just the supplier, but then their supplier as well. What happens then when that demand picks up? I mean, people are talking about a V-shaped recovery. We don't know if we'll get that, or a U-shaped recovery, but at some point things will bottom out and there will be a pickup in demand. How quickly does that whole system turn around?
Very slowly. It's not going to be V-shaped because many of these suppliers will be out of business, by the way. And what happens is the following. Others have lower capacity. They cannot supply all the orders now. So what companies are doing, they start doing what's called phantom orders. They order a lot more than they need because they know that they get only a percentage of this. And suppliers cannot supply. So what you really should having is the bullwhip in the opposite direction. Now it starts hitting customers and their customers and their customers. Nobody can get enough. It's not going to be a V-shape. I just don't see a V-shape. We didn't have it after 2008. We did not have a V-shape because of the same phenomena. So I don't expect to have a V-shape. However, let me just add, we talk about what companies should be looking at their supplier. They should also looking at their customers. Right now, companies should be sitting and deciding, what if we don't have enough parts? What if we cannot build all the products? Which products are going to be built, because many parts go to multiple products, and which customers are we going to save? Are we going to save? Who is coming first? What are the priorities for serving customers? You don't want to do it at the last minute when you don't have. You want to set up some rules right now when you still have some time to breathe.
So do you think
we can also talk about government?
Do you think there's still time? I mean, obviously, all of these things that you talk about, ideally, companies would have had this as part of contingency planning, whether there's a crisis or a downturn or not. Nonetheless, we are here, and presumably some companies are better prepared than others. In your view, is there still time for companies to make adjustments and think about these things, or is it a matter of the ones that prepared are going to be in better shape than the ones that didn't?
For something, there's no time. For finding alternate suppliers, there's just no time. It's gone. It's too late. If you didn't have it ready, if you didn't have contracts in place, if you didn't have quality assurance already on the other suppliers, it's not going to happen. However, preparing, for example, priority of customers, it's a what-if situation. This can be done now. Preparing decision-making rules about what happens if the CEO gets stuck and who makes decision on what. Companies can still do all these things because these don't take a lot of time. It's processes.
Okay.
They should also start thinking about, workers. Who are the crucial workers to have? How do we think about continuity of pay? And last thing they should be thinking about is starting to manage for cash flow, not for profit.
Okay.
As time goes tough, cash is king. So companies should start thinking in these terms.
Professor, I want to get your thoughts because, of course, the supply chain, companies were already changing some of their supply chains because of the trade war with China. And, of course, we did get phase 1 signed, but that doesn't really change the scope of the problems here overall. Do you think that the trade war changed the supply chain, that changed the processes that the companies had in place with their suppliers, with their customers, and that is still in flux and perhaps it's holding off or changing the way that they would make these contingency plans?
Companies started making this contingency plan and starting moving to other places like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia. But where would you move now? I mean, is Vietnam a safe place? Is Malaysia a safe place? South Korea doesn't look like a safe place. Japan doesn't look like a safe place. So it's not even clear where to move. You think you want to move to Mexico? I don't know why Mexico would be immune to all of this. So the move has nothing to do with the coronavirus because you don't know where to move. But over time, companies should simply spread and having some redundancy, having suppliers in more than one continent. That's a general thing that companies have been doing, but it's certainly not a way.
The S&P 500 wiped out nearly $4 trillion in market value over the past 10 sessions. That is the budget of the United States of America.